To me, sometimes it's difficult because certain industries are prone to be disrupted, for example, by blockchain technology, and that they are kind of afraid of it. The most important thing, I think, is one, the token economy behind it. Like, where are the tokens distributed? How much token are available? If a team says, well, we'll keep 80 to 90% of the tokens to ourselves, that's probably a red flag, because then it's a centralized business where they have 80 to 90% of the power.
Andreas Schemm is the Ecosystem and Operations Director at the Human Protocol Foundation, a company that is tokenizing work all on the blockchain. Now, Andreas himself has been in the startup scene since 2005. He's built things from scratch, always working in emerging technologies. And now he's utilizing the power of blockchain to another use case. So with Andreas, I wanted to get to the bottom of his story. We talk about his come up in different startups and also about the Web3 space in general. Its pros, its cons, its common criticisms, and also busting some myths, the common misconceptions of the space. Then towards the end of the episode, we talk more about the mindset, how you should work, work-life balance, working smart, all things, as anyone who's listened to this podcast knows, I'm really passionate about and always want to learn from experts in the field. I really enjoyed this conversation. I didn't look at the clock once. That's when you know it's a good episode. I hope you feel the same way as well. So without further ado, I'm Alex Boycey, and this is the Building Our World podcast. Super duper. So Andreas, good morning and welcome to the show. I wanted to get right into it, to your journey, because you have been in the startup scene, according to yourself, since 2005. Now things have changed a lot since then. So let's go right back to that beginning. I mean, how did you actually end up in the world of startups in the first place?
Yeah, good morning to you too, Alex. A pleasure to be here. So my journey began in 2005. I was 19 years old at that time, and I had the feeling that I needed to do more in terms of practical rather than theoretical, which has been the story of my life. So I decided to, instead of going studying or getting a degree, I wanted to be part of startups that, or rather cool projects. And the first one I went into was actually an internet and gaming cafe. So that was super fun. It is also coincidentally one of my biggest hobbies, gaming. So it was quite a lot of fun. I learned a lot. At the age of 18, you do tons of mistakes, but it was a great look. And I also got to experience some, basically doing things on my own. And I was able to test some of my own ideas as well. So I got a lot of freedom, and yeah, I haven't looked back. Basically, I enjoyed it. So I can continue to work in either startups with some of my friends or on my own.
So does that sort of come naturally to you then? Because when most people 18, 19, they usually want to go into like a larger company, get some skin in the game, learn a few things before kind of doing the startup stuff. So where has that desire come from?
I always liked it more when I have a little bit more freedom. And I would say at the big corporations, there's usually a very strict way and things take a little bit longer to get done. And I always liked the, let's say, very new approaches or new concepts and being more innovative, which is harder to do at a corporation. So I was naturally drawn to startups. And also at that time, especially if you look at the gaming space, there was not a lot of big corporations already present. And if you're 18, it's also not that easy to directly get into a corporation. So for me, it was really rather that I said, I want to work, I want to experience stuff, but in a cool industry. So yeah, things fell into place, I guess.
Perfect. And then from there, you've been in the startup scene, CEO of certain things. I mean, it would be good for the listeners to just get a bit of a trajectory of kind of the last sort of 15 or so years of what you've been doing.
Yeah, of course. So after that first venture, basically, two of my friends started the idea of bringing laser tag to Germany, which was something that I knew from How I Met Your Mother, for example. And I always thought it looked super fun. And when they asked me if I want to join, I said yes, without thinking too much about it. And I was kind of like a COO, co-CEO there, mainly responsible for getting things running internally. It was super fun. It was a journey of 5 years. I think we went from one location in Frankfurt to up to 14
Wow.
in all of Germany. We designed a franchising system. The German Lasertag League is still going to this day that I kickstarted. So it was super fun. Afterwards, I decided I now need to do my own thing, and I founded Project Gateway in Vreo, which was working on virtual reality and bringing ads to games
Yeah.
in a way that I, as a gamer, felt comfortable with. That means like more product placement instead of interstitial ads, because that is what we are still seeing on mobile, which I still think is horrible, that you're getting interrupted, your immersion is being broken. So it's more like product placement in film. And this is also when I encountered blockchain. Because
Mm.
when we were talking about advertising and gaming, advertising has a glaring issue, and that is oftentimes trust and transparency. And I'm still a strong believer that blockchain will help with this because there's so much ad fraud, over 30 billion ad being lost. So this is what we were working on. It was going great. Blockchain did help a lot. It helped us get into more conversations. But sadly, when the COVID pandemic started, experimental budgets were the first to go.
Of
And after
course.
like a year, we couldn't sustain ourselves anymore being a startup. So I sadly had to shut it down. But that led me to being able to join Human. So here we are.
Perfect. So yeah, obviously I reached out to you because you're part of Human. Super interesting what you're doing. Probably better to come from you than me. So what is Human doing right now?
Yeah, of course. So Human is a protocol that means we're an infrastructure for the tokenization of work. So really what we see as the future of work is, especially with the gig economy growing, a place where everybody can contribute and be rewarded very fairly without bias. And that is what we are offering. So we have a technology to launch any kind of request or job, basically. And then through an escrow system, the money will be set aside on completion, on quality check, etc., etc., then the money will be paid out immediately and fairly, and we're not charging as many fees as other platforms in that space. I would say charge. They can go
Mm,
up to 30%. We're looking at maybe a tenth or like 5% at maximum. So that just means there's more money into the workers' pockets and just a fairer distribution and contribution. Yeah.
perfect. Now, obviously, you're using emerging technologies to do this, blockchain, as we said, and ML and that sort of stuff. But when it comes to blockchain, um, and I suppose web under the Web3 umbrella. So you found a problem here with the fairer pay for workers,
Yeah.
and you've decided that blockchain is the solution to that problem or a solution.
Mhm.
Now, I think what's great for the listeners is because not everyone's obviously as well versed as you. Um, what specific, if we take it right down to basics, what's specific about blockchain as a solution to that problem? Why do you think that's the answer?
Yeah, of course. So there are actually a few things. One is, and that is one that's true for most projects, I believe, is that it enables micropayments. If you look at a bank transaction, for example, from the US to, let's say, Germany, where I live, you sometimes need to pay $17 for one transaction. If you were to pay out someone $1 or $2, that's nine times that just for banking fees. With crypto, you can send as low as, I don't know, a quarter or a 40th or even a hundredth of 1 cent. So that
Mm,
just enables contribution for minor things. So micropayments are very good. It's a great example for how crypto can help. How blockchain can help is really the immutable aspect, that there is a record, and that is immutable means it can't be changed. So it's there forever and there's no discussion on it. It's the truth that is accepted and that the consensus has written onto a chain. So that
hmm.
means it's there. And that also means that it's harder to challenge or fraud people because
Yeah,
you have a clear proof that something has happened. So
yeah.
this is the two main aspects where we can see blockchain helping in bringing the future of work on chain to have it with especially a globalized, more and more globalized gig economy. You have micropayments, you have fairness, you have transparency, you have immutability. And I think that's very strong arguments for it.
Mm, absolutely. It's almost like a state of mind, isn't it? It's that decentralized nature, and I suppose that ties into the gig economy, the global side of things,
Yeah.
where no one is particularly in charge. Um, And I know we talked about this before off air. People, it's so weird. Um, as someone myself who's done traditional Web 2 recruitment as well as Web 3 stuff,
Mhm.
I've been around for a while now. Um, I kind of see both sides,
Mhm.
and I actively like follow on Twitter people who are like absolutely all about this kind of new age of tech, this decentralization, and then I also follow some skeptics as well. Um, I watch debates and things like that. But what I found weird is that there's some really, really smart people, established people, and it's just so divided that it's
Mhm.
almost like you're either in two camps. There's people that are absolutely, I would say, evangelical about
Mhm.
this new wave of technology, and then people that will just beat it with a stick. I reckon the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, as with any emerging technology. But I'll be interesting as someone who's in the space. How do you view this whole debate?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I'm with you on this. I try to be more of a centrist, where I say I see issues, but I see also vast potential. And to me, sometimes it's difficult because certain industries are prone to be disrupted, for example, by blockchain technology, and that they are kind of afraid of it and thus against it is
Okay.
an understandable human emotion, basically.
Mm,
It's also, I think, two very big issues. One is education and knowledge, and that is it's easy to misunderstand what blockchain or crypto can bring. And it's also the distinction between, yes, there are some scam projects, but that is not exclusive to Web3 or blockchain. That
yeah.
exists in the real world as well. Just think about pink sheets, for example, and what has happened in Wolf of Wall Street that was in, well, the traditional finance space. And I think it's not an issue of Web3 specifically. Actually, the money laundering in the traditional finance is, I think, like 99 times as big. So there's often cast a negative light on this. And while it's
Mm,
true that it exists and it should absolutely be better, and there are steps being taken to make it better, and there are being regulations put in place, which I actually welcome because this provides a framework for you to work around. And I think it's very much easier to do so. So
mm,
I think it's in the middle. It has lots of chances, but it has also lots of issues, and it can't be solved overnight. But you cannot just say, "Oh, because you can do something bad with it, it's a technology that is
mm,
not good to be used."
mm. Yeah, I think if you're on the outside looking in as sort of a general observer, I think, I mean, what puts me off as well, and really actually annoys me because it does taint this sort of technology, is the, well, is I suppose scams. I wouldn't maybe say scams, but just like, I mean, you see it with cryptocurrencies and NFTs. It's these influencers, these
Yeah,
celebrities pumping up a coin or selling an NFT, and then
absolutely.
it just plummeting in value. And I think that's what the public sees.
Mhm.
And I think when you have that perception, people will not look beyond that to the technology behind it, which I think is the most interesting part.
Yeah, which is why I mentioned the knowledge and education gap because let's look at traditional press. It's either when Bitcoin is soaring or Bitcoin is
Mm,
falling, or there's I don't know, a hack or a rug pull going on. So it only casts light on it in very peculiar times, I would say. And that obviously also shapes the perception. And it's
yeah.
not easy to get into Web3 or crypto to understand how a blockchain works, then to understand how a token works, then understanding that there are so many different tokens, models, tokenomics behind it, projects that are different. It's a daunting task and understand it. And then again, if you are not that familiar with technology in general, and then you should set up a wallet and do transfers where if you do one number wrong, well,
Mm,
it's gone. It's understandable that people are sometimes scared and that the
yeah.
entry barrier is quite high, which is I think needs to be solved. And yeah, that only can be done with improvements on many different things, UI, but most importantly, knowledge, education, understanding.
Mm. I agree with you there. The barrier, the knowledge barrier to really understand the space, is really high. And I think that's what's quite dangerous as well, because you get
Yeah.
people who don't really know much about sort of anything, and you can be sold this dream. There's all these stories of people losing a lot of money and things like that. And I think it's quite dangerous. But that's not, as I said, exclusive to Web3. You should
Yeah.
never sort of put your money in something you don't understand um, anyway. But
There
you
are.
touched on it there in terms of we sort of covered the blockchain. Now, tokenization, tokenomics, I know
Mhm.
that's a big part of what you do at Human. Um, Now, as I said, to sort of Joe Public listening in, and maybe it's like podcasts like this that can help with this kind of barrier to entry.
Hopefully.
So, how would you explain uh, tokenomics, tokenization in
Yeah.
simple terms?
So it really depends. And I could talk about this for hours, so I'll try
Yeah,
to be short. So basically, behind every token or coin that you see, there's usually a model. Yes, most of them are ERC20 tokens still. So that means they're sitting on Ethereum, there's a smart contract behind it. But that is not the most important thing. The most important thing, I think, is one, the token economy behind it. Like, where are the tokens distributed? How much token are available? If a team says, well, we'll keep 80 to 90% of the tokens to ourselves, that's probably a red flag, because then it's a centralized business where they have 80 to 90% of the power. That's not great. So you look at it also from a utility perspective. There's always an issue of, for example, the Howey test, which is a test to check if it's a security rather than a utility. So if it's a utility, it should have exactly that. You can do more with it. Sometimes there are payment tokens, but I think the strongest aspect and where it gets the most interesting are utility tokens, where you offer more utility to a token to do stuff with it. It can
mm,
be like a license where you get like access to a certain part. You could do voting with it, which is one of the biggest aspects of decentralization,
yeah,
governance, including the community. Truly, this is where also DAOs come in. Although some DAOs appear decentralized, even though they are not, because again, one person or one project holds 80% of the coins. So you should look at it. What can you do with the token? What how is it distributed, how much is available, and basically all the things around the project, not just reading the tweets
yeah.
and being hyped about it, but really try to dive deep into what the team is behind it, what the ecosystem is behind it, what the utility is behind it.
Yeah. So how would you know how the tokens are distributed? How do you find that out?
So any good project usually has a token page where they show how much is being sold to, for example, was sold to pre-sale investors, was sold in a public sale, is allocated to the team, to an ecosystem, to partners, to the public, etc., etc. So there is a breakdown usually present, and you can check it on CoinMarketCap as well. What the float is, for example. It's not always true. Sometimes there's issues in getting that metric correctly reflected,
Mm,
but you can look at a smart contract as well, where it gets more tricky. So I would rather check out the allocation distribution mechanisms and also the pages where they have it up and show it. And generally speaking, if there's one entity or one part that's not the public or not the ecosystem that is above 30 to 50%, it's,
mm,
to me at least, not a great sign.
mm. Yeah. Absolutely, but that's the thing as well. We're talking about barriers to entry. How many people are going to know to do that
Yeah,
in sort of the general world? So
yeah, sure.
again, it's this discussion, this theme that keeps coming up. But when you're relating it to human, I mean, how is this tokenization used? Maybe it's a good chance for you to explain in the use case or context of human.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually working on our version 2 right now, which is an upgrade that we call the routing protocol, which does exactly what the name suggests. It routes jobs between every participant in our network. So as a user journey for a job, for example, it would be someone comes in and wants a job done. Let's say he wants to have 1,000 images labeled. He funds this job, and then it goes onto a chain where we measure the metrics, how congested is it, how much transactions per second can it handle, what is the liquidity like, is our token over there. As soon as all of that is met, the smart bounty gets listed on that chain. It gets forwarded to people wanting to annotate images. They will do so. Our Oracle system will track the quality, that it's been done correctly, issue the payout, and send back the results. So that means there's lots of different keys aspects in this system, and we are not the ones who control these by design. So that means we have parties, third parties, and partners who provide a service. That can be how you launch a job, that can be the blockchains, that can be the oracles, and every single part of that needs to stake our token to be part of the ecosystem. So you need skin in the game, because otherwise you have
Mm.
no downside to misbehaving or
Yeah.
trolling. So basically, we guarantee that there is a consensus between the people, because we know that the stake can be slashed. That means if you do something that's detrimental to the system, if you try to scam someone, you have skin in the game that can be redistributed to the party damaged, and also
Mm.
the ecosystem to strengthening precautions, for example. And that's the main aspect. The other feature we are including it is that you can lock it up and gain access to a voting token to participate in our upcoming governance, so
Yeah.
that you can vote on shaping the future of human protocol, really.
Yeah. Perfect. And this decentralized governance, I'd actually love to pick your brains on that. A few
Yeah,
people have mentioned it to me, and they see it as the future of maybe voting in like elections and that sort of stuff. I think we were way, way off that. If I'm honest, I doubt
afraid so.
that would come anytime soon, or people relinquishing that sort of power. My sort of main thing is at my skeptical side of my brain is a state of mind, isn't it? It's a theme of decentralization that is basically kind of
Hmm.
behind this new wave of technology. Um, I sometimes think if we talk about maybe money or like central banks, I don't know, when shit really hits the fan and there is chaos,
Hmm.
is there value in having someone who is in charge or a central thing to make a decision to go, right, this is what we're going to do, and to put everyone at ease?
Hmm.
Um, and maybe can my critique be combated in some way in the decentralized model if I sort of misunderstood something? But that's sort of a thought that lingers with me when, when push really comes to shove, is it good to have someone who's like in charge and like, this is what we're doing? I think about to the financial crisis where
Yeah,
governments had to step in and basically prop things up.
absolutely. So I once again think there's no immediate answer that one is clearly the best. But the issue with one person being in charge is that it can be an abuse of power. And
Yeah,
they will do what they think best. It might be the correct call, it might be the wrong call. And it also might be a call that saves their hide, and not the one, not the hides of the people who have, I don't know, provided money or effort to it. So that is a very big issue to me, because there can be lobbying behind it, there can be personal greed sometimes. If you have a decentralization where you have a governance and you basically rely on a hive mind, that can have its own issues too, of course. But generally speaking, if people contribute not only money, but also time, effort, ideas, brain power, they should have a say in how it should go, which is the idea behind the governance on most blockchain projects. It's
mm,
also that you get ideas that you would have never thought of, because you are a very limited team usually if you're a centralized entity, and it can be slow to react because you have all these regulations in place and step, and there's seven different
yeah,
middle management until something gets escalated, etc., etc. So here it's much more immediate.
mm,
I think education is again a very important factor to understand what a proposal can do to a project or for a project. Sometimes it can be incredibly beneficial, sometimes it can be harmful. And that is also something I see in blockchain. There are so many different voting models that it can be really interesting to see, but also scary to see what some people implement, because we have seen so many flash loan attacks, for example, where you can just loan enough tokens to have the majority in voting, and
yeah,
then just assign everything to yourself. And you've basically stolen money in a kind of very obvious way, which is why there are certain other voting models like conviction or quadratic voting that I believe are much more interesting. and we'll see how they will further progress in the future, basically. But it's very interesting to see what kind of models you can choose and what kind of steps you can implement.
Yeah. I know there's been a lot of bad press around that sort of majority stakeholder. That's how a lot
Yeah.
of the hacks, the really kind of publicized hacks, have gone down.
There are solutions
Um,
for it, though. You just need to implement a different voting mechanism. That's
mm,
one of the fastest and easiest one. Because if you, for example, say conviction voting means you need to stick with the vote you have casted and have conviction that it's the right call, so that the voting power goes up only in a curve. You can't do it in a second, no matter how many tokens you get. So if there is this kind of stuff happening, there's a clear signal, okay, somebody is trying something shady, and then the
mm,
rest can come together and say, okay, we clearly have a malicious actor here. Let's exclude that. So there are mechanisms already out there that you can implement. It's just a little bit more effort and probably
yeah,
also a knowledge gap.
absolutely. But who's deciding this voting mechanisms? I mean, how would this go down in a real life scenario?
Yeah. So initially, you just need to have something in place. So there's what we do, for example, is we have a council of experts from the, let's say, Web3 space, the broader one, which have a background in academics, in legal, in business, in finance, etc., etc. And we are starting out with an alternate conviction voting model where you, as I just explained, need to lock up your voting token over time, and then it gives voting power to the proposal you want. These experts who are not working for human protocol are third parties. They decide what proposals initially even come on, because you need some sort of protection against
Yeah,
absolutely malicious proposals, against attacks that are glaringly obvious. Other times it's a debate. Is it positive? Is it negative? Let the community decide. But if someone says, hey, I want everybody to send the tokens to me and I have the majority to back it up, this proposal would be shut down immediately.
yep,
These people are initially there, but they're always up for vote after a certain time period. And this is how it worked in ancient Greece, which is why we're calling it the magistrate as well. So
amazing.
basically, you
Love
have
that.
the populist of the people who cast their vote, but you have a magistrate who looks at things and says, like, yeah, that sounds good, or rather, that doesn't sound completely malicious. And that is how we are starting things off, because you need to start somewhere. If the community is not happy, they can propose a change and say, no, we want to go to, I don't know, quadratic voting, and we don't want this magistrate anymore. And if enough people come together, sure, that's up to them. Because if we could decide how it is forever, we would be in charge. That would mean we are centralized and not decentralized.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that was in my mind as you were saying that. That would be a criticism, wouldn't it? Where people go, "Well, hang on, you're not decentralized. You've got people who set the rules."
yeah,
But the
but
way
they're
you
not.
combat that is these elections, I suppose,
Yeah,
whatever you can call them. But it's not like a election in the political sense where things can be manipulated. It's really kind of black and white. These are the numbers. This is what we want to do, and
yeah.
here are the records of everything that are immutable.
And we even show the proposals that are being rejected. So it's
Mm,
not like that this will never see the light. It's rather for this reason, because this was blatantly obvious that this was a scam or hack attempt, we have shut this proposal down so it did not be up for vote. And someone can redesign the proposal and enter it again. If it's a scammer, well, chances are it will be bad again. But if it's just someone who has, let's say, mislabeled it or has not made the intention clear, there's no stopping him from proposing it again.
mm. And it just gets voted down
Maybe,
again.
yeah.
Maybe, yeah,
If it's still bad, it gets voted down. If it's positive, it
yeah.
gets to the, or let's say neutral at least, it goes to the vote, basically. And then the community can decide. They can still say, well, okay, it's better than the version before, but we still hate it. So that's a 90% no vote. Or they can say, yeah, okay, we see it now and we'll vote it in. Let's try it out.
Mm.
Not our call.
Amazing. It's the thing as well. When it's explained, it makes sense. But as I said, the media perception, they can just find a stick and beat you over the head with these certain rejections. But everything we've discussed so far, and I know I've been a bit of devil's advocate. Um,
which is good.
I don't want this podcast episode to be a grilling. I want it to be an enjoyable experience. But I think every sort of criticism um, that you can label it any sort of this decentralized stuff can be labeled the traditional models as well. Everything that can happen, hacks, scams.
Yeah,
There's a million ways to do that in the kind of the world we're in at the moment. Um,
absolutely.
and I think as well, I mean, with human, it seems like you're onto something. The growth you've had in such a short time as well, and just from the outside looking in, and the team you have and the people you have, and the momentum, it does seem like you're onto something. Um, so, how has sort of the last, I suppose, almost couple of years been for in the human story? If you could maybe paint a picture for the listeners of how that's looked.
Yeah, of course. So I think the idea was there already a few years back, but it really started to gain a little bit more momentum in 2020 and really picked up in 2021 when I also joined. I'm not saying it picked up momentum because I joined, just to be clear here. It's just at a time where a lot of people joined the project. And yeah, we did one of, if not the biggest coin list sale last year, which was great, and showed a lot of interest in the project and gave us a lot of confidence. We have great partners that work with us. We have a great team. So really, it's an amazing journey. Last year, I believe, in Q4, we released a demo application for people to start labeling and just to see how it works. We really wanted it to just be a demonstration on, hey, this is how a process could look like. And suddenly we had over 200,000 signups, which
Wow,
was massive. And the cool thing is, after 1 year, we are basically now at over like roughly 20 million tasks being done per month in the machine learning space. So that's amazing. We are not done yet. We are just releasing our version 2, and we already have shown scalability into the millions of tasks being completed. And we have a lot more in store, obviously. And we have a grants program that brings and highlights new use cases. We have a community program with our ambassadors for people who want to join the ecosystem. So it's really an effort. We have so many open source contributors, and it's really cool to see that everyone wants to help build this. And yeah, we're just gaining more and more traction with it. And I can't wait to see what the rest of this year in 2023 has in store for us.
amazing! Yeah, that sort of scale and that level of interest in users is just staggering, absolutely staggering, and it's so exciting as well. And I think why I get so excited about this sort of stuff is that, I mean, essentially you're just scratching the surface, aren't you, in terms of this particular use case? And
Mhm.
there's a million and one other use cases as well. Um, I mean, you don't have
True.
to sort of go into too much detail if you don't want to, but where do you see the potential for what you're doing in other areas as well?
Yeah, of course. So we are starting out with the machine learning industry because that's what basically some of our background is. It's also very good because it's objective. So, for example, our Oracle system can say yes or no. If there was a design, like is it a good quality of work, yes or no? With a design, it's always subjective. Do I like the colors? Do I like how the image looks, etc.? So a bot or an algorithm cannot check that for quality. It can check it for parameters, right, file size, etc. But in machine learning, it's really easy because you have something that's called a holdback validation set, and that basically means an example of a correct answer. And then you test every other answer that's being submitted against it, and you can do it in an automated way. So that's it's very good. It's a great effort, usually to check it, which is now being reduced, which is why we're starting with machine learning. Now the chance and issue is that a human could work for basically any industry that has a request or a task that needs to be done and being paid for, which could be anything. And there it gets a little bit tricky. But this is, for example, what our grants program is for. We have set up a fund basically, and we're not the only one doing this, but basically this is a fund to showcase projects that use human in a very innovative, creative way.
Yeah.
let's say, bringing reviews on chain, bringing challenges, tasks, maybe even gaming quests on chain, bridging liquidity between decentralized and centralized exchanges. There are so many different things, and we are hoping to show the potential of what we can do through these projects. And rather than using us, can showcase what human can do, because we are obviously not saying what they should do. They are approaching us with ideas, and we are saying, amazing, please build it.
Perfect. Do you think there's sort of areas that lend itself to this model? And maybe a better question actually is, do you think there's areas where actually this decentralized and tokenization way of thinking isn't the right answer here? Have you ever sort of come
Um,
across that yet?
Yeah, I think, for example, if you look at retail or something like that, there is a system. Yes, we could theoretically say, well, a purchase is nothing else than a request for buying hardware. But honestly, there are specialized payment systems out there for retail stores, for example, that are a lot more, yeah, well suited for this. So we cannot do it for just anything. It's really why we say task and requests. For communication, for example, there are better platforms for it. Um, but
Yeah, you
the
wouldn't want if
other
you
thing
were
is,
like what you wouldn't want to everyone seeing your private messages and things like that.
yeah, for example. So we can see a lot of things, yes, but we always look at specific use cases, and we are being honest. If someone says, hey, I would love to utilize blockchain and human, and we say, well, we don't really see it. Like someone has said, I want to open up a coffee shop and utilize human. And we said, well, that's great, but that's not really where we see we can provide the most value.
Hmm. I think again that's a criticism of the space is where any new technology people just want to pick it up and run with it and go right. Let's just use this. You can solve this problem, this problem, this problem, and obviously
Yeah.
one of the big criticisms of the Web3 space is that it's a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Tokenize everything, even
yeah.
an iced tea, as I found out. Yeah. So there was a lot of, especially when the early hype was there were a lot
Mm,
of projects that were just saying, well, actually what we always did now on chain with a token, and that's not how it works. That's not where the value comes in. I would see that you can say supply chain, for example, if you want to do it desperately with a product, for sure. But does every product need its own token? I do not think so.
yeah. No, I could completely agree with that. One thing you said about obviously there's a bit of a downturn in terms of cryptocurrencies and the crash of that, almost like a recalibration from the boom of last year.
Yeah,
Um, and in terms of my team, obviously we're growing. Getting actually like some proper Web3 kind of specialists in. A lot of people saying, "Oh, why on earth are you doing that?" But I think people don't understand that the technology behind it and sort of the
yeah,
hype are sort of two different things. But
100%.
someone who kind of works deep in the industry, have you noticed any sort of change in, I don't know, maybe like investor appetite or sort of customer appetite in 2022 compared to 2021?
Yeah. So investors, I wouldn't know because we didn't get any investment. Actually, the project is a non-for-profit project. So in terms of interest, I would say yes, of course, when everything goes up, there's a lot more hype. That means more people coming in. What we see right now is that we really see which projects were just based on hype and
Mm,
which projects are actually building and furthering their infrastructure. And I count us as one of these projects, obviously. But you can see that some projects just even have shut down because their model was just not future proof and not
yeah,
sustainable. So I would say we see a little bit of a paradigm shift where you say you need to build something that is future proof, that is sustainable, that has an actual model around it that makes sense. Um, and I actually think that corrections are good. There was too much hype going on, and there was too much being thrown around with 100% APY, which honestly just cannot be sustainable in my mind. Happy to be proven wrong, but so far what I've seen is really tricky. So yeah, I think we're in a phase where it gets a little bit more mature and more projects really focus on building and seeing the vision come. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's quite the opposite. And if there's less projects and people are getting a little bit more careful, in saying, hey, I do more due diligence on my own, I absolutely welcome that change.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think of some of the stuff last year in the space was just out of control, looking
Yeah.
back, just stupid, dumb stuff. The money being thrown around was
Too much.
absolutely insane. But what goes up must come down. And yeah, hype. I've
Yeah.
one thing I've learned, and when I first started in sort of tech recruitment, I'd if a company was in the media a lot, had these articles on their funding rounds, and constantly publicizing and looking great, I'd really kind of equate like, oh, that's such a great company, great business model. And now I've realized as I'm as I'm getting older is that the only thing that matters is kind of money in the bank, sustainable business, sensible business,
Yeah.
and sometimes hype and lots of publicity can actually mean the opposite. Think of the motivations behind it, and maybe
Yeah.
with this tech downturn as well in general, I think more people are realizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. For some projects, the hype was just to cover weaknesses or that there was not
Yeah,
actually that much done. So they
definitely.
just announce. And it works for a couple of months, maybe sometimes years, until people realize, well, there wasn't that much behind it actually.
Mm,
And as you said, it's not just in the crypto space. I mean, the stock market was down as well. It's just that there's less money in general to be spent with inflation being rampant too. So yeah, if you decide, am I going to buy an NFT or a pizza? Sometimes the correct answer is a pizza. So
hmm
I think it will pick up again probably, or even if not, that's fine because there's so much that is already being there and so much you can do with it. And if you have a more sensible intake of money and brain power, I think that's good because some companies always hired like, oh, we'll hire 1,000 people, and then 3 months later they fire 700 because they see, oh, this is not sustainable. I mean, you
Yeah,
know it, you're in the space. So we still see people joining the space constantly. And I think that's absolutely going to continue. And I'm not down on the space. I'm just saying that there is a correction and that's good.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, when I speak to a company about sort of a hiring project, um, especially back in the day, they're like, "Oh, we need 100 engineers." I'll
Hmm.
always be like, "That's a really convenient round number.
Yeah.
Where are these? Have you mapped out where these 100 exactly engineers are going and what they're doing, and if they're needed, and are they going to generate revenue for the
Yeah.
business?" It's a very nice number. Um, and obviously, it never is 100. They hire sort of 30 or 40 and then go, actually, that's all we need.
Suddenly they realize there's a limit to what you can build at the same time.
Yeah.
Things go out of hand. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's the same. We are actually really looking at open source too, because that is a lot of people who don't want to be tied down out there. And
Mm,
that's one of the reasons why we do it. It's also one of the reasons why human protocol exists, so that you can really work from home and work on anything. And yeah, I think it's a great space.
yeah. Yeah. When we all sort of blockchain engineer roles or anything like that, always fully remote worldwide.
Yeah,
I think because of the lack of talent, but also I think there's like obviously these companies are pushing the decentralized model, and they almost need to live and breathe that kind of value as well.
they should, for sure.
Practice what they preach. But anyway, I wanted to dig into a bit more about you and
Mhm.
your story. So
Sure.
obviously you started early, you've worked hard, you've done various different enterprises in the startup scene. Successful, I think, is the word. Where has this come from? This kind of insatiable appetite to work hard and to do things and to build things, because that's quite rare. Not many people do that, and especially with this podcast, I want to find out about points of difference. So, where
Mhm.
do you think that sort of drive has come from?
When I was a child, no, I don't want to go that much back, but I think it's important that when I was in school, I always felt like, okay, I learned all of these different things, but I don't know why. What can I do with this? So this started out from a young age, actually. But I
Mm,
always wanted to build stuff, to see how it comes to life instead of just thinking about it. So as soon as I could, I basically said, okay, that's enough school. I want to go work, and I always have lots of ideas. I mean, many people do, but I have a drive to just try them out. I want to see if that can work, if that can come to life, if that is a correct call. And I want to see if other people think the same. And I'm also very interested in different kinds of new technologies, absolutely. So anytime there's something new, I want to be part of it. I want to test
Mm,
it out myself. I want to toy around with it. And then I want to improve it because I always think there's more that can be done. And I love to contribute and say, how about this? Let's look at it from every different angle, but let's be rational about it. And my drive is really, and that's a stereotypical German thing, efficiency. I love it when you can do brilliant things
mm,
without going like this hustle mentality of, yeah, you need to put in 80 hours. I would rather say, let's try to not do that. Let's try to find a way to
mm,
optimize and have a path for everyone so that they can enjoy their life. I was at a point in my life where I worked like 80 hours a week and I completely crashed. I went on holiday and I couldn't enjoy it because basically I couldn't get up because it was like my body was saying, "Oh, we're relaxing now. Let's not do anything." And I thought, "Okay, that's it. I need to change the way I operate," and that has been a big part of my doing and why I like the operation side as well. To just say, "Let's put in processes." Some people think it's boring,
mm,
but it can help this dreaded work-life balance,
mm.
especially.
That is actually super, super interesting. I think, to be honest, I think I've been on a similar journey to you in that regards. Um, I have done. I used to burn out probably once a year,
Mm.
like a trademark burnout. I remember. I mean, it was different because I was obviously couldn't go on holiday, but the first holiday after the pandemic, me and my girlfriend went away.
Mhm.
And yeah, when your body truly relaxes, I mean, I was sleeping till 1 p.m.
Yeah,
Like, it was unbelievable how much I was sleeping. And it's, and yeah, I think when you're young, and I'm speaking from my experience, I would just go in, right, maybe it's a good thing or maybe it's the naivety of youth. You just go and work as hard as you can
yeah,
every waking hour, just dive into it, do it, and just see what happens. And eventually, trial and
yeah,
error, you'll get there. And yes, that's true. Um, but now I'm getting older and I'm sort of building the business as well and hiring other people. If there's a task or a goal or a challenge, whatever it is, and really zooming out and going, right, what can
Mhm.
we do? Maybe you could advise me on this actually. What can we do to do this in the shortest amount of time? Get rid of certain friction. Can we think more critically? Can we, instead of trying to bash through a wall, can we walk around it? Um,
Yeah,
and I've definitely developed that mindset more in recent years, and it's definitely kind of helped me kind of health wise as well, work life
yeah,
balance. But
absolutely.
especially in my world, the sales world, the UK recruitment world, the culture has always been just work as many hours as you can and just hammer it. But actually, you got to think, you got to work smart, and that's definitely a journey I've been on.
Yeah, that's it's great, and I think you're 100% correct. It's quality over quantity.
Mm,
Um, we have worked with recruiters, lots of them before. Haven't worked with you yet, but we have seen some that have this mentality, and they just sent over 50 candidates, and that
mm,
is useless because we don't have or don't want to spend the time. We need the right person for the right job. So quality over quantity also in that space.
mm,
But how we usually do it is we try to, even in onboarding, provide them with as many possible steps and as much information as possible so they are onboarded and know what human is, what to do, etc., etc. And in all of our processes, we're thinking about, is there enough context? Do the people know why they do it? Do they know what to do, what the bigger picture is, what the end result is? And if you have that and mesh it all together, it's so much easier to do any job because you
mm,
know what's part of the bigger pictures. We have monthly all hands, we have weekly meetings between the departments, breaking down these silos. It's such a cliche, but it's really important that
mm,
speaks to each other and knows what other people are doing, why they are doing it, motivation behind it. And if you understand it and understand the project and the goals of it, that's a much bigger driving factor for most people to say, hey, I'm actually contributing something to a very cool project. And we see that every step of the way, not just when it's finished, every step of the way, we're seeing the building being built. And that's just motivation to keep
mm.
going. And
Yeah.
this is just efficient, because why would you want anyone to spend 20 hours on something if you can give them as much context as possible? So let's say they only spend 5. That means A, either they have a little bit more free time, can they enjoy a walk in the park, which is proven to be helpful, get out into the green, um, or they can pick up another task. So it's just a win-win situation, and I think it's super important, because if you're happy, you're more productive. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'm trying to do as well is like audit all the processes, audit all the software. And one thing that's helped me is like, right, if I'm in this person's shoes and this employee's shoes, what what would they want from me? How can I make their life sort of easier? I always use there's a big, maybe you wouldn't have heard it in Germany. So British cycling about
Mhm.
15 years ago went through a big revolution called marginal gains. It's about
Mhm.
improving the 1% in everything you do, tiny, tiny things, but eventually over time that adds up, and they became the most successful cycling team ever, winning tons of gold medals at the
Yeah.
Olympics. It's a guy called Sir Dave Brailsford who's the mastermind behind it. And they would do things like if an athlete needed childcare, they get it sorted like that because that athlete needed to train and not worry about it and not have that thought or stress in their mind because they just needed to be almost. I almost see it as like taking the handbrake off
Mhm.
your employees or your team, getting rid of all the friction, all the bumps in the road for them, so they can just whoosh, go.
Yeah.
And I think that's a super interesting concept and way of doing things, and it's definitely helped me so much.
Glad to hear it. Yeah. It's definitely something like that. Yeah. I would agree with everything you just said, basically, because it's just so much better for everyone involved. And I know there are lots of managers out there who say, no, I need to micromanage, I need to know, and I need to do this or do that. But if someone can spread their wings and fly, it's always better.
Mm,
So, yeah, it sometimes can be a transitional period, but I think the effort is always worth it. And what we focus on as well is making it absolutely clear from the beginning. You can ask any kind of question. If you don't know something, that's perfectly fine. All of us don't know everything. So basically, just ask and we'll help you. We'll help you through every bump you have. And it's just better, because then you can
mm,
act like a team and help each other out. Um, and I know there are a lot of people who are afraid of asking questions because they might look like they can't do their job, but that's just wrong. If you foster that culture, you will have more mistakes. If you say, let's be open about it, let's talk about it, let's discuss it, it's always better.
yeah, absolutely. Could not agree more. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask about you and your future. Where do you see your career going, and maybe your journey with human?
Mhm.
I mean, how are you thinking? How big are you thinking? Where's this all going to go?
Yeah, of course. So I'm not sure if I can plan ahead in terms of I'll be here exactly for 4 years,
Yeah.
because honestly, with a decentralized project, you never know, and you shouldn't. Um, it's actually funny, because in a way, as soon as the project is completely built, which it will never be, to be fair, but as soon as it's getting traction, it's being used, there might be a world where for example, am no longer needed, because everything is automated, everything is working on its own, and it's completely community driven, and someone else gets appointed to do partnerships, and that would be actually sad, because then I would no longer be part of human in that way, but it would
Mm,
also be an achievement, because that means the system works, basically. So I cannot really plan ahead. What we can do, though, is we can say we have a lot of ideas, and I know the community has lots of ideas, and we need to align that. And I believe there will always be a spot for people to drive things forward, to see those proposals that are going to come in, to be built, to come to life, and to coordinate. So I'm very excited to see where it takes us. And I believe that no one knows where it will go, because more and more people will come in, contribute, and change how it works and how it develops. So being part of that journey and being agile, the hype term for this is, and just seeing where things go, is what I'm looking forward most to.
fantastic, fantastic. And what about the space in general? We talked about Web3 a lot in this episode.
Mhm.
I guess I know your answer, but How early on are we? What's the potential here? What are we on to?
Yeah, there's this Gartner hype cycle where it goes up and then it goes down into the Valley of Tears, and then more mature projects come out of it. I would say we have passed the Valley of Tears actually, and that we are seeing to be more, that there are more and more useful projects coming in that have a real world use case behind it. And I think that it will go like this. It will continue to bring in more technology, more institutional stuff, more regulation, so that it becomes a more standard industry. We need to see more education, but we're seeing that. So I am quite stoked about the future for Web3, especially. I think there will be more scandals, there will be more crashes in crypto, which is fine, which is needed. Market corrections are um, just happening. That's just how it is. But I'm very excited for the future.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. It's a fascinating space, an unknown space, but
Yeah,
that's what makes it so exciting.
Yes.
Andreas, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your journey. I thought it was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Alex. And yeah, looking forward to listening to more of your podcast soon as well.
Thank you so much for listening to the Building Our World podcast. Every view, stream, and download is massively appreciated. If you're new here, then please go back through the catalogue. There's some great gems from some of the brightest and the best in Berlin tech. And if you really like what you hear, then please do hit that follow and subscribe button. That's it for now, but until next time, goodbye.